Hello, I'm Max from 7th Memory, and welcome back to Devlog number 9. Before we start with this devlog, I just want to apologize for the delay. I had some stuff come up this week that made it hard to get a start on early, so I apologize for that. To start, here's some stuff that I worked on these last couple of weeks. I did some menu bug fixes, since some of the visuals and alignment didn't really work properly, so hopefully that should be fixed now. I also added some sound effects, and some of them are temporary. We took a couple of them from Earthbound just as placeholders, but in order to illustrate the idea of this kind of sound we'd want in the final game. Also, chests can give you items now, so I created a little visual that pops up with one of the items that you get out of the chest. In addition, we had some weird cases when working with the darkness effect, and so I made it apply better between rooms. That way it didn't apply weirdly as you move between rooms, and you couldn't kind of subvert the intended darkness effect. And lastly, added some fence tiles to the tile sets, and started on some of the NPC sprites. One of the bigger things I worked on quite recently was actually fixing the pits again, and this is probably the third attempt working on it, but this recent adventure was mostly brought on because I started thinking about if we wanted to implement moving platforms. Our current system for pit falling wouldn't really work and would kind of fall apart. So this approach is a lot more controlled, but it requires a little bit more manual work. Our idea is that we're using a default kind of debug tile set just to lay out an area where the player is able to respawn. So every time you move, the player's state machine checks if you're on one of the tiles in this tile set, depending on which way you're moving. Floor and ceiling are used here just to make sure you're actually on the tile before updating your position, just to be safe. And if you end up being on one of these tiles, it saves the last safe position to somewhere on this tile. In addition, when you move between rooms, whenever you change screens, your position is saved to the last safe position, just to be safe, and at worst case, you get placed at the start of the room. We also adjusted the falling state handling for the player. So before, a lot of the code took place in the flag script, but we moved it in the player script to control it a little bit more and have it all in one place. It works a little bit like this. Whenever you enter a pit, they get added to a list in the player state machine, and when you enter the falling state, the state machine goes through this list and checks if you're in any one of the pits. And if so, the normal falling sequence plays normally. And all the pits give you a target position, so you'll fall in some sort of target position that's within the pit that you fall in. This was all mostly done because the previous detection system also had some sort of race condition while we were trying to fix this, and we found that it was something between detecting when something leaves a body of an area 2D and the process function, so we decided to kind of stagger these functions a little bit by having everything be sent to the player and take a little bit longer to process just to make sure the pits all update on if we've actually left them or not. So after implementing the system and fixing a couple bugs, it works a lot better and we have more control over where the player might even respawn. One of the other big things I've been working on are the NPC objects. Since we have a ton of characters designed now we just need a way to talk to them. So I worked a lot on making sure NPCs could wander and pathfind to random locations. The way that I did this was to use a navigation agent 2D in Godot, and I used Simplify just to keep it simple and fix up some issues with navigation that we had. But once we have our path, we needed to determine the direction to walk. And the way that I handled this was that we would get the direction to the next point in the path, and depending on which component is greater, we would move in that direction first. So if we needed to move more horizontally, the NPC would move to the side of tile, and then we would check again. Or if the Y component was greater, the NPC would move vertically to tile first, and then we'd check again. And we'd repeat this until the next point on the path is reached, and until the end is reached, or a pathfind timeout limit that we added of like 5 seconds is reached. After this, the NPC enters the idle state where they idle for a little bit of time, and then they choose a new location to wander to. And every time we search for a point and determine the direction to move, the facing direction of the NPC is updated to match the way that they're walking, and there's an option to make sure the NPC always faces you while you're talking to them. We also can just play dialogue based off the file name within the NPC object, and we have an NPC that pretty much works now. There's a few things I still want to implement, such as being able to follow a path, which working on that for NPCs will allow us to do it for enemies, and so we'll be able to finish up both things almost at once. And there's a lot of other miscellaneous things to kind of do, but it wasn't too hard to put together, but there's not a lot of information on how to do stuff like this. So as to the next couple of things we'll be working on, there's a lot of art to do for NPC portraits and overworld animations. I started working a little bit on these, but we still have to design them, but we have some ideas for what to do. So hopefully soon enough we'll have a couple different looking NPCs in Dormant, and over time that number will expand. Moreover, I really want to get shops working this next week, since you're able to get money but you're not able to really use it or spend it, and I think it'd be a nice thing just to have finished so we can implement art and wrap up some stuff with it. We've also been working on areas like Dorman and the Forest, and in this footage here I'll showcase a little bit of what Olive's been working on, such as some of the puzzles in the area and some environmental obstacles. After these areas are wrapped up, we'll move on to the fort and clean up other areas that we've worked on and make sure that everything's all together cohesively. We also have a couple enemy designs left, as well as finishing up the designs of the main character and the other characters in the party. So thank you again so much for watching. This Friday, Olive will post a Substack article going over what we've been up to this month and some of the stuff we've gotten done, and it will include an overview of the battle system again if you missed it last time, and go into a little bit more depth about things that we might not have covered in these videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time with another video. Goodbye!